June 3rd, 2026, AEW Dynamite just went off the air, and oh boy, was that main event insane. Everybody was involved, and we'll get to it. By the way, congratulations to Will Ospreay for going on to the finals for the Owen Hart tournament. This is Swithbert Suplex Society. I am Swithbert, and let's get into it. We started the night off with two Roosh promos back-to-back. One of them was recorded earlier in the night. MJF crashed it, had some words, and it broke down. And then we moved straight into the introduction to the show, where we then got Roosh's second promo, where Andrade came in and said, listen, you can do this. Do it for the family. We rolled that straight into Roosh coming out, MJF coming out in a Matador outfit, which was kind of funny. The first promo that I run for Roosh, MJF had said, if you're the bull, I'm the Matador. So that was just a whole thing. And I don't know how he gets his outfits ready so quick, but he did. And that was just where we rolled. When the match got started, neither guy for the first 2 minutes had any give in them. Although Roosh did have the upper hand for a solid portion of it. There was a lot of just crazy back and forth. It was a no count out match. So Roosh did take it to the outside for a while. He grabbed the wire. He was going to hit MJF with the extra wire, and MJF reversed it. At one point, Roosh got kicked into the Timekeeper's area over the barricade. A minute later, MJF got backdropped into the Timekeeper's area over the barricade. Didn't break the table, though. Just kind of hit it, and the whole thing tipped, and he fell to the floor from there. It was a really good match. It was for the title, which was kind of interesting, but apparently MJF was more willing to give Roosh a shot as compared to Briscoe. When everything broke down, MJF did end up with the victory, so congratulations. Still our world champion. Heck yeah. Then afterwards, MJF was going to hit Roosh with the title, and Briscoe came running out, and MJF scampered off. That was followed by the conglomeration coming out and everybody kind of standing around for a minute, including the Stone Pitbull himself, Ishii. We got to a point where MJF disappeared. Mark Briscoe's match was up next, so he hung out. The conglomeration hung with him for a minute. And then we moved straight into Briscoe versus Lio Rush, the Blackheart. And it was very funny because the conglomeration, and by that I mean Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Ishii, were walking back up the entrance ramp when Leo's music hit. And they all froze. They all froze on the entry ramp because apparently Leo won't attack you if he can't see you, and he can't see you if you're not moving. So Leo did his little thing right through the conglomeration, got to the very end of the entrance area where the padding on the floor begins, and everybody kind of started to walk slowly, and then Lio Rush, they almost choreographed it perfectly. Ishii moved a little bit, so red light, green light, he's a loser. But Lio Rush turned around and looked back up the entry ramp, and everybody was just like, don't move, don't do it. Very funny stuff. Goofy wrestling for life. I loved every second of it. When we actually got into the match between Briscoe and Rush, they had like a weird little back and forth. Rush was trying to whisper something to Briscoe. Couldn't tell you what it was. It was very quiet. When they finally started to hit each other, Rush took a step back and bent down into his Gollum pose and was just like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Super, super fun stuff. I am all about everything that happened. The entire match, top to bottom, was very fun to watch. There was a moment where Lio Rush was chasing Mark Briscoe around the ring on all fours. Briscoe did end up with the victory. Congratulations to Briscoe. I want more Lio Rush. This whole thing with the red eyes and the nasty stained teeth is just phenomenal. The way that he moves around, runs around, whispers to himself, has entire conversations with nobody is one of my favorite things happening right now, and I am excited that he still has the energy to pull it off. After a commercial break and some tomfoolery, including a package about Jet Speed and their whole current breakup, we got the Triangle of Madness, who came out through the audience. Tekla was cutting a pretty good promo. She was all about looking forward to Forbidden Door, where she said that if Stardom decided to show up, she was going to take everybody and anybody from there out. They ended up coming through the audience, around the side of the ring, up the entry ramp. Sky Blue and Julia Hart dipped into the back for a second and brought out a ladder. Tekla said, I'm not waging war on Stardom. I am calling for the death of Stardom. And she climbed up the ladder and she got right up on the Tron where the Stardom logo was posted, and she spit on the Tron. And that was very interesting. She seems to be meaning business. She wants her two sisters in the Triangle of Madness to also gain titles so that they can just be dripping in gold. I'm all for it. I think that everybody in that faction should have some kind of gold, whether it's the women's title and the tag titles, or as Tekla was saying, she'll hold the women's title. We'll give Julia Hart the TBS title back, and we'll give Sky Blue the Owen Hart Cup tournament title. Either way, give them the gold. Let them have it. They're a strong faction. They could use a few more wins, but they are doing everything that they need to right now to show that they're powerhouses. We moved from there into a Death Rider promo with Will Ospreay, and it was just silly goofiness, and it basically came down to Jon Moxley saying, this is Davis. He's not a movie monster. He's just a dude, and you can beat him. Because their match at the end of the night for the main event was still upcoming, obviously, and like I said, it broke down in a spectacular way, and I enjoyed every second of it, but we will get there. We followed that up with Andrade coming out, and he was having a match with DK something. I didn't catch it. They only said it twice, and they never gave him a nameplate. So it ended up being a squish match, less than 90 seconds. Andrade grabbed a mic when he was done, called out MJF, and was basically like, you've beaten everybody, sure, but have you beaten me? How you know? And then it just rolled on from there. Don Callis came out with Doyle. They stood in the ring for a second, and then Don Callis introduced the newest member of the Don Callis family, Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight is now part of the Don Callis family. I'm not against it, although I do think that the Don Callis family is getting a little big. We only just had Takeshita leave, so we'll just see what happens there. But that did introduce the next match, which was Kevin Knight versus Mike Bailey for the TNT title. It was a good match. Both of those men know each other very well, so it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of reversals, a lot of dodges, dips, ducks, dives, more dodges. And in the end, Kevin Knight retained the title, so he's still got gold, and now he's part of the Don Callis family, and so they have more gold, which, fine. Like I've been saying for months, give the heels more gold, let everybody have fun with it. 2026 is the year of the heel. Let's take it from the top. Then we got a fun little promo. It started off with the dogs, and they were like, oh yeah, we're awesome, we're awesome. We've got our alcohol and a kazoo. Finley had a kazoo, and he started blowing it, and it was a whole thing. And then the Young Bucks came walking in, and they were like, well, you guys think you're number one contenders. We think we're number one contenders. We've already beaten you at Stadium Stampede. We know we could do it again. Why not suit up and let's go have a match tonight? To which the dogs were like, yeah, no. And they walked off. But it was very New Day heavy. So there was the kazoo and a little bit of dancing and posing. And then when the Young Bucks got in there, they did the whole owl segment as far as like, hoo, 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 hoo. So I'm curious if they're just being cheeky or if the New Day is actually about to come to AEW. I'm not against either option. They can be as cheeky as they want. But if we got the New Day to come in and maybe join, like, I don't know, the Hurt Syndicate, I think that would be a lot of fun. Those guys deserve everything. They did so much for WWE, and even before that, before they became the New Day. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. We do have a pay-per-view coming up in a couple of weeks, so maybe they make their initial appearance there, and then everybody moves on, and the AEW crowd would probably be very happy to see that be a thing. And then we got kind of a quick segment. It wasn't very long. It was MJF taking a bath and telling Briscoe that he's never going to get a shot at the title. That was the whole thing. It didn't need to be a thing, but it was a thing, and we got to see MJF in the bath. So then we rolled straight into the next round of the Owen Hart Women's Tournament, where Alex Windsor was out, and it was up against a wild card, so we didn't know who was going to be there. And it was the return of Mercedes Moné. Mercedes ended up getting the victory at the end. It was a hard-fought battle. Windsor definitely put up a fight, but they gave it to Moné as a welcome-back gift, apparently. Then we had Callis and Okada, and they were in the back doing a whole thing about, like, oh, Don Callis family's so great, Don Callis family's so great. And then Okada was like, Takeshita may have my title for now, but he's not going to hang on to it for very long. So the challenge has been thrown out there. Then we came to a spot that was very interesting. We got a package from the last few weeks where Jericho, we got to see him finally defeat Ricochet and then immediately get jumped by Ciampa. And then we smashed to Saturday night show where Ciampa had his list of 1,004 things he hates about Jericho. And then we were with Ciampa in the back, and he was saying basically the same thing Ricochet has been saying for the last few weeks, where it's like, hey, Jericho, you're injured, you're at home, you're licking your wounds, stay there. If you decide to come back, I'm going to beat the tar out of you, because why not make a statement in the best way possible by taking off the head of the snake? So Ciampa's gearing up to go up against Jericho at some point. I'm sure we'll see Jericho, if not Saturday, probably next Wednesday. And now we're just going to have Jericho helping build all these guys that maybe fans don't really know about, although Ciampa's been pretty big in several different companies. So Ciampa versus Jericho, I think, would be very fun to watch, and I hope that it becomes some kind of bigger thing and Ricochet can get involved, and we can just go back and forth with all of it and just use Jericho in a way to help boost other performers in the company in really fun ways. Then we came to the main event, and it was Ospreay versus Davis in the semifinals of the Owen Hart tournament. And I think we could all tell that Ospreay was going to win. They're really pushing the narrative that he wants to be the first UK-born, British-born boy to go after the title in the UK, since at the end of the year in August, we are having the pay-per-view back over at Wembley Stadium. They did a really good job of storytelling how important it is to Ospreay, while also showing that Davis is even more of a monster now than he was back when he was tagging with Ospreay and they had their own little stable like over in New Japan, and then when they initially came over here to AEW. It was really strong. Neither man had any give to them. It was just back and forth the entire time. I loved every second of it. There were lots of spots that could have gone horribly wrong and lots of spots that worked way better than I think they should have. However, it broke down when Paul Turner took a shot in the head and rolled out of the ring. Initially, we had some Don Callis guys come out, and they started to try to beat up Ospreay, and that's when the Death Riders started to come out, and we had Garcia and Yuta attacking and starting to take down guys, and then another Don Callis member would come out, and then another Death Rider member would come out, and it was back and forth like a strange little revolving door until Doyle came out, which, congratulations, welcome back to Doyle. He came out and knocked somebody on their ass, and then Marina Shafir came out of nowhere and jumped on his back and was choking him out. He flipped her off his back. She spit gum at him, and it was just man on man on man on man on man, just back and forth, kind of a spot fest, like when there's like a 10-man tag and everybody gets their one good shot in. Somebody rolled Turner back into the ring because Ospreay was pinning Davis. Somebody else pulled him right back out, and it was just a whole thing. And finally, the Don Callis family and the Death Riders all ended up fighting up the entry ramp. Turner was still down on the outside. Ospreay was starting to get a little bit of offense going. And then Kyle Fletcher showed up, and he was just about to hit some kind of killing blow on Ospreay when Takeshita showed up and pulled him out of the ring, and then they started going back and forth. They started to fight up the entry ramp, and when they were disappearing, Ospreay managed to hit the hidden blade, and it was just a whole thing. The crowd was counting. I think they got up to about 12 before Bryce Remsburg came running out and sliding into the ring for a 1-2-ooh. And then it was just two men slapping each other for 5 more minutes. until Ospreay was able to get the victory. So he is going to the finals. And next week he will face, or we will find out who he faces, whether that's Brody King or Swerve Strickland. And then we'll have the finals later this month at the pay-per-view. And then all of that will culminate at the end of the year in August for the title at Wembley Stadium. So that definitely gets match of the night because it could have gone either direction. Neither guy wanted to go down. Neither guy could keep the other guy down. It was just absolutely ridiculous. And then the giant awkward battle royal in the middle of it all was just silly, goofy fun. And I enjoyed every second of it. Got to see my boy El Clone for 2 minutes. So happy days, happy stuff. So until Saturday, I hope you guys have a great week. Don't do anything crazy. Stay sane. And I will see you next time. Peace.